Namaskar, welcome to Wide Angle with Ashok Vyas, and Wide Angle is a platform where we indeed talk about wide range of issues coming from people who have had wide range of experience of life, and perception as evolves with experience leads to that precipitation where words of wisdom becomes source of light for others. And I have someone who has served his patients for 4 decades in the field of internal medicine, and his journey indeed has lots of, if I say twists and turns, if I say a lot of turns. But where we are right now, he has offered all his learning, experience, and precipitated wisdom in the form of a book. Yes, Finding the Human Element, connecting one patient at a time. And with congratulations, I welcome Dr. Sharad Jaitly to our studio. Namaste, Dr. Sharad.
Namaskar, Ashokji. Thank you for having me into your studio today.
So I see there is a sense of connecting to life in a way which also makes you a perpetual student. And when you have chosen the title as Finding the Human Element, do you feel it is missing somewhere?
Very importantly, like you just pointed out, well, first of all, as I said, thank you for having me over on ITV Gold. And this is an extremely great honor to be with you, Ashokji, again. Human element is something which I think I was thinking about writing on a book, about almost 2 years ago. And since then, I have been sort of engulfed with as to how I can encompass this vital element that we were all born with, and we just need to re-explore from within and try and disseminate further outside. Not that it's something which is totally, out of the blue. It's there within us. It's just that over a period of time, I've seen to myself that I think, especially in the wake of the past 2 years since we've been engulfed in this epidemic, I think the human element, because we have become so remotely connected, because we are so far and detached from each other, I assumed that, in all walks of life, not necessarily in medicine, but even in other professions, may it be publishing, may it be media, may it be accounting, or may it be law, doesn't really matter. I think the more we are connected together in person, one, the clinical outcomes in medicine, of course, will be extremely better. Two, even in other fields, you will see that I personally feel that I think the productivity is much enhanced if the employers and the employees, they're all connected, more humanely. So the point was that 2 years ago, I began writing something, and I wasn't sure what I was really putting all of that together. But here comes out a book which was only published last October in 2021. And now it's displayed at the Library of Congress. And I'm happy to share that now it's almost hitting the Amazon on certain medical categories in certain weeks as a bestseller. So I'm happy to share that with you that, look, human element is now being recognized.
So coming back to the question where we look at human element and we feel it is missing, let us try to define, or let us learn about your definition of human element, and I'll add my 2 cents. If you are considerate, if you are sensitive, if you love nature, if you appreciate sunrise and XYZ things, then I consider that human element is there somewhere. And when we go by what you have just shared, that there is something which is disconnecting us from this flow of humanity, human feelings, whatever. Let me seek your insight on when you started writing. Was the whole flow of book kind of preconceived, or as you kept on writing, some more ideas emerged?
Well, that's very true, because actually some of the ideas, they emerged while I was writing. And I did not even have the clue whether or not this would be the title. The title came in much later after I put all of my thoughts together. But you're right, how do you define human element? And that's one of the things that I personally feel the human element, like I said, we were born with. It has to have that compassion, the sympathy, the empathy within. And personally, it's the feeling of giving. Personally, it's the giving of laying out for the people. Personally, it's the feeling of actually reaching out to other people. Personally, it's making like a human connection, a human bond, a human bridge, if you will. And I think that's what implies human element. It may be from within the family members. It may be from within the closest friends. It could be, like I said, within the company, within your firm, within your studios here. Nothing like the moment I walked in a few minutes ago, I was greeted by a wonderful person and stuff like that. And it was just a human element was flowing, and it was just, I immediately had to say, it looks like I'm in India. It seems like the hospitality is such great here. And and that really touched the core of my heart. So if that feeling arises within the person, that's the human element. In doctor-patient relationship, I believe that is sacredly important.
Absolutely. And your first chapter talks about the human body and the laws of nature. You want to say something more? What have you conveyed?
Right, like you alluded to, like if you are a lover of nature, if you love the sunrise, and if you love the sunsets, and I think the point I'm making through that initial chapter is, I'm trying to say that we are the supreme power, that the Almighty has really bestowed us with that human attribute. The human attribute is so important because we are the supreme power, and we are not only taking care of the humans around us or the societies around us, but we are also in charge of taking care of the rest of the species around us, millions of species around us, if you will. And that is so important because there is no other species that really, if you look around in the millions of species around, no other species really takes care of the other species, leave aside their own. So the point I'm making is I think humans have been bestowed with that extraordinary power, if you will, from the Almighty, that not only कहते हैं हम तो अपनी मानव शक्ति को तो प्रिजर्व करना चाहते हैं, मगर दूसरी जो स्पीशीज़ जो हैं उनको भी हम प्रकृति में आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं. तो मतलब कहते हैं, and that's precisely where we are coming back to. We are trying to preserve the earth, we are trying to preserve the climate, we are trying to preserve the nature all along.
And I kind of... I hate to interrupt you here, but we are failing miserably. As you say, we are trying to protect Earth. I mean, we have a lot of symptoms of Earth not being happy with human beings. And I also want to bring back what we learn in the classrooms. And there is something beyond the classroom that we need to imbibe. And I think that's what you are pointing through your book also. So, as a physician, what you studied or while you were doing your internship, etc., the trainings that you have been through, but there is something more than that, which either you brought from your home or which you assimilated from your family members, your friends, etc. So talk to me, can we have a sort of a structure whereby this human element becomes a parallel sort of a wave of learning for whether you are a physician or a computer professional or something?
Right, absolutely. I think you're 100% right on the mark, because in the doctor and patient relationship, Ashokji, I think it's so important that when I trained in India, this was 41 years ago before I moved here, the cornerstone of any learning process for a physician was primarily human element. There was no, for lack of all the advent of technology that we have today, the CTs, the MRIs, the PET scans, and all imaging that you can think of in the world, none of that was existing. So the only way that you can really find out from the patient is by listening. And that is one of the messages I like to convey to my younger doctors and the trainees and the students specifically. And that is that I think the doctors have to be better listeners. If they're better listeners than better talkers, they perhaps will succeed more. And listening is so important because the patients are coming with their griefs, with their suffering, with their pain. And who else will they go to? They sometimes don't even disclose this with their family members. So sometimes the doctor they find is the best friend outside of family. They want to share their griefs, their pain, their suffering, their ailments. And nothing of that sort can ever be discussed. And it's such a sacred relationship between a doctor and a patient that I personally feel that's a time-honored relationship that must be maintained. Not that I'm not from the I'm not for the new school of thought. The new school of thought is clearly showing all the advent of technology, including the artificial intelligence, including the robotic surgery that's happening, including the stem cell genetic re-engineering that's happening. I'm with it. But I think it should be all in conjunction with human element. Minus the human element, I think all of that sort of depletes the
so here is if I use the little not very pleasant sounding word in this context is there's some contradiction in what you are saying. While you are saying that you welcome artificial intelligence, but it should be with the human element. Now, artificial intelligence by the name itself is that there is sense of artificial, and in human you need not have that sense of pretension, etc. But let me learn from you, as a chapter in your book talks about something which could be relevant for us today, tomorrow, or maybe someone else. That is the key to being a good patient. And you have also given the key in the title itself, which is compliance. Do you think patients are not compliant enough to the suggestions or instructions of doctors?
Time and again, you'll come across where patients could be in a denial. Time and again, you'll come across where patients will be in a defiance. They say, look, I don't think I have this problem. I don't think I need so many testings and what have you. But again, and the doctor's supposed to honor and respect every single aspect of what the patient wants. That's number one. However, when the patient is seeking the care, at that point, the doctors should be totally listening to what the patient's griefs and pains and sufferings are. And based on which, the good old-fashioned way is to make a diagnosis, a presumptive diagnosis, and then confirm with various testings. There will be times during practice, and I recommend that to my younger colleagues, if I may, that there will be times when patients will be in reluctance to pursue certain testings. Like if you're prescribed an angiography or a stent or a bypass or what have you, there will be times when they will actually not be amenable or be agreeable to it. It's okay, as long as you laid out the pros and cons with them on the table and explained to them that, look, these are the benefits and these are the various risks, and this is how you go. But defiance, denial is always there in all of us, So I was just glancing through this chapter, and you're in bold letters writing that it is therefore prudent to leave all troubles home before one comes to see the doctor in the clinic. And I think this is in context with something that you have explained in the previous paragraph. But in general, if you just look at this line, if patient has no trouble, then why would he come to the doctor? Right, and there will be the troubles that the patients want to bring are the real physical ailments. Essentially, there is a lot of mental ailments lately, especially with the autism, with the attention deficits, anxieties and depressive episodes, and the stress syndromes that this epidemic has brought about in the past 2 years. I'm sure you all heard of that. So the problem here is every single ailment, every single symptom has to be analyzed very carefully by the treating physician. May it be a general physician, may it be a specialist, may it be a psychiatrist, may it be a surgeon. But the fact is that cornerstone of compassion should never ever deviate from the way the patient is being evaluated. And that is the key. That is the key component to it. Now, regardless whether it's going to be done in a remote setting, even as you heard about, telemedicine is on the horizon. It's already being practiced now over the past several years. And there's a way that you can still be offering that humane touch to that telemedicine, if you will. And that is so important for me because it's easiest to pick up a pen and write a prescription, Ashokji. But the hardest thing is to put down the pen and explain exactly what you're writing about the patient, about that prescription, or ordering a test. And that's where I think the doctors will have to spend more time. I'm trying to bring back the doctors back to the bedside. So this way they devote enough time analyzing what the tests are being ordered, why are they being ordered, and why are they not being ordered.
So your book is very inspiring and stimulating, and even with a glance you start thinking about several aspects related to patient-doctor relationship as well as life in general. So talking about life in general, if I may say, technology, even if it is telemedicine, would not prevent the human connect, provided it is there. So that is something, even if you are in the physical presence of the person, you may not have that human touch.
Correct.
Which you may have with someone on phone or on Zoom, wherever you are communicating with them. So this is kind of beyond a simple definition as to what you are trying to find through your book. And if I may bring the reference, which has not been, what should I say, I have no exact words to connect, but I would say that you are a courageous and a brave person as well as a creative person, and you have chosen to share some autobiographical elements and events which have been shocker in your life. I've also known your son, and we remember him and we mourn his absence. He was a bright, creative being, but the way he chose to depart is difficult to comprehend, and I can imagine how difficult it has must have been for you and for Devmani ji. But you have kind of opened up that reference of your personal journey on that front also in the chapter 6, where you are talking about the avoidable loss of my father and then my dearest son. So talk to me, which way you feel this chapter is kind of important to kind of be transparent in where you are.
Well, it's a very solemn moment for me in terms of just to reflect on. I mean, there's every moment through our lives that we have to go through this unfortunate passing of our beloved son Muni, and you knew him very well, and I think the last interview was with him, and so it was something which God destined, and he completed his journey and he moved on, and there was something that we could not have done any more beyond what was possible. However, one of the things that from my inner strength that brings me around as a parent, which is very, very difficult in his absence, is I want to keep his legacy and his word, a word of promise, going for the rest of my life till my last breath. And likewise, it's true with my wife as well, his mom. And we both are committed. We really want to try and see how best we can really keep his work going. And this was one of the work, the human element. In fact, he knew that I was writing this book about, and it turns out that we completed initially a Muni Meter Health, the cardiology chapters of about 500 videos, which he helped me greatly complete. And then this was my next venture. But as I said, I think it's something which is, it's a grief that I have to leave, live on this planet forever. Till I leave this planet, and I think it's one of those things that I think it's very hard for a parent to even imagine, and I'm going through that pain. However, but at the same time, I would like to say thank you, Muni, for offering me this light to really, proceed and give me the courage. And I personally feel that I think at this point, if I can even change somebody else's life and being, I think I'll feel a great deal. I mean, there are times when people have congratulated me, hey, Sharad, your book is doing so well on Amazon. Hey, Sharad, your reviews are amazing on Amazon and what have you, or wherever else. And, I got published in a couple of articles in India, and I followed it, right? I feel great about all of that. But the fact is that I think more importantly is if I can bring about a change in somebody's life, even in 1%, in whatever way through this book, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a patient. And I got some bad news here. One of these days we'll all be patients, before we leave this planet. And that's a bare fact. That's a mere fact. So I think everybody should read it because what it takes to form a human bond is not just one. Doctors can have the human element, but if the patients do not, like you said, defiance and denial, and patients walk away and say, look, we're not going to take your aspirin, we're not going to take your diabetes pills.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, and let's think together as an extension of human possibilities, the way technology is becoming the other arm or additional way empowering human limitations. For example, robotics. Now, if you are a doctor, you know how robotics is also being applied, and it is kind of bringing about less number of human error in play during the operation part of it. So, anything additional that you think collectively those who are inventing further additional tools should be considerate, and shouldn't we see robotics or artificial intelligence, as we were talking earlier, also as an extension of stretching human possibilities?
Absolutely, because I think that's where we are. Look at it this way, 30, 40 years ago, we barely had a telephone. Today we have the social media. Today we have smartphones. We are communicating each other with the Facebooks and or even on FaceTimes. Doctors are doing Zoom practices. As a matter of fact, now they are meeting with their patients without actually meeting them in person. I have nothing against that. As long as we have that compassion and the sympathy and empathy we are talking about. What is empathy? Empathy is defined by where you actually the doctor places himself or herself into the surroundings of the patient's family and the being and actually try to feel and understand the pain. Take for example, a terminal cancer patient, for instance. A terminal cancer patient, it's easier said than done. It's a very, very tough field. And a cancer patient itself is going through so much pain and grief. Leave aside the rest of the family members who are attending to. They have to modify, they have to change their entire lives around him, their schedules around him, their understandings of bringing them to chemotherapy and radiations, what have you. And yet they know the days are numbered, unfortunately, in that patient. So the point is that in fact, in my book, I also say that when it's time to go, it's time to go. You can change.
So actually, that is true for our conversation also. So coming to the last question, and I saved it for coming to the last one. In your book, the yoga reference comes earlier, and you have a chapter, yoga is for the mind, body and soul. What about the heart? And being a cardiologist, now you tell me, what about the heart?
I think it's great for the heart as well, because yoga has been, look at it this way, Ashokji, it has been transcended from generations, millennia of years. It was originally described in Vedas, as you and I, we all know. And there's nothing older book on this planet other than Vedas. It's before BC, before the times. So the key is that yoga was well defined. Yoga is exceedingly important for so many things, including ailments of various anxiety and depression, substance abuse, cigarette smoking, etc., etc. It's excellent because it resets your mind and resets, therefore, your body, your ability to handle the various stress. Who doesn't have stress today? Everybody does have stress. You bring out the car out of the driveway, you're meeting the traffic. How do you take a deep breath and say, okay, well, I'll allow myself enough time to get there. I'll allow myself enough time to be at the meeting in time, etc. This way I don't keep the other party waiting. And it is so important for us to avoid these kinds of stress moments in our lives that actually resets your heart. So the point is well taken. It's good for the heart because certainly your anxiety levels are much controlled. You reset your positions in a way where actually it can help. But coming back to where the human element again, where the whole thing is so importantly integrated, if you will. Because at the end of the day, what really counts is whether or not that human element was there in the relationship that developed over a period of time. And it doesn't happen on a fraction of a second. It happens over years sometimes.
So I appreciate Dr. Sharad Jaitly for one being who he is a sincere seeker and learner of life as well as creative and courageous to share his findings. And the finding which he considers very important is in the form of this book, Finding the Human Element. And while I appreciate your presence here at our studio, I will also say that as someone who interacts with another human being through the interview process, in my role also, human element has been enriching. If there was no human element, it won't be as enjoyable and enriching as it becomes. So my signature also on your book that being human is definitely the way to go. So lots of good wishes, sir. Thank you very much and congratulations.
I thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm glad that you liked the cover of the book. Hopefully you'll enjoy reading the book.
Wonderful.
Please
So,
enjoy that.
Dr. Sharad Jaitly with us. This is Ashok Vyas. Thanks for being with us. Lots of good wishes.
Thank you.